Hi there, this is a video demonstrating old age makeup for the stage. On this half of my face, I'm going to be doing a middle-aged look, and on this half of my face, I'm going to be doing more of an old age look. I am working with cream foundations, so what you're going to need for this is a cream that is your skin tone, one that is significantly lighter, and one that is significantly darker. Those are three. I like to use brushes as well that are a little stiffer for this, that have smaller lines that can be drawn with, angled eyeliner brushes, that sort of thing, and then have some bigger, more like concealer brushes that can help pull the color out from the lines that I initially place. Now, we used to be taught back when I went through stage makeup that you need to use foundation that is 2 shades darker than your skin, 1 to 2 shades, and that was because back then most theaters were using the type of lights that were a little bit warmer temperature wise, so you needed the makeup to work a little bit harder, and also your audience tended to be further away. But now the trend these days in theater is that you're in the audience's lap. It's a found space, it's a black box, you're right there with your audience, so they're gonna be able to see if your face is 2 different colors from your neck. And also, the lights these days tend to be more LED, they're cooler temperatures, so the makeup really and truly doesn't have to work as hard. So you can go ahead and use your skin tone foundation. Now, you're not going to want to powder yet, because once you put powder on top of cream, it's not going to move anymore, and you want it to be able to wiggle so that you can really place those lines and then blend out from them. But if you powder down, it's not going to work very well. So no powder until you are done with all of your cream work. I have my foundation on. I'm going to go with this side. I'm going to be showing you guys the more of a middle-aged look. So I'm going to take my highlight and I'm going to emphasize up underneath my brow just a little bit. This, as we get older, our skin starts going slack a little bit. The collagen, the elasticity starts breaking down. So when we don't have something tight up against the skull, gravity starts pulling it down a little bit. And that's what we're going to start introducing here. I'm 33 years old, and mostly I just noticed the difference between my picture these days on Facebook and my picture when I started Facebook. I just look a little more tired. I look a little more run down, and you know, life happens. So highlight here. I've noticed that this part of my skull tends to start being a little more pronounced just because my face lines, the way I smile, right here, there where that eye socket is, I'm going to put a line there. I'm going to put some highlight down my nose, because you still want to make sure you're seeing. But I have noticed that this nose is not quite as little and cute as it used to be. It's starting to get a little bit bigger, and that's one of the things that continues to grow. Even after you die, your nose and your ears continue to grow because it's a different kind of cell. They get longer. So then one of the things I'm noticing is right here. These are called your nasolabial folds. I didn't name it, but that's what they're called. And here, this line starts getting more and more defined because you've been smiling for however many decades. Now here's where things start getting a little tricky. This part of your face, normally when you think about light and shadow, which is really all you're ever working with makeup, is light and shadow. You're changing the placement of it, you're changing the color of it, light and shadow. Here, normally when you think of light and shadow, you think of the light being on top and the shadow underneath, because that's what happens. If you hold your hand out and the sun is up here, the shadow of your hand is underneath. But here, because we're using makeup and because we're playing tricks with the audience's eyes, instead of putting the highlight here, you're going to switch it and put it down here. Because this is the part that the sun is hitting. This is this flat part right here, and here's the shadow. And it looks weird if you flip it around. It's one of those things, just go with me on it. Alright, and this is getting a little bigger, my chin, because gravity is, and cheeseburgers, let's be honest, are pushing a lot of stuff to here. So I'm going to add a little bit of highlight here just because that's where I would normally have highlight for stage makeup anyway. I've noticed that this is getting a little softer. I don't have those cheekbones that I used to have because, again, cheeseburgers and years. So I'm going to go right on top of it and just kind of mark where my cheekbone is with my highlight. I'm going to do the same thing down here. I've noticed my jawline is not quite as cute. I used to be able to play Batman with this jawline, trust. It's a little bit softer, a little saggier now, and that's okay. what I'm going to do is, instead of doing a nice hard line like you normally do if you're doing your own makeup or if you're doing a normal stage look, I'm going to round it ever so slightly. Just a little bit. Just a little, that jaw is just a little soft. That's all. Alright, now that I've got my lines placed with the highlight, I'm going to go back with a fluffy brush and I'm just going to kind of pull out the color. Now, I don't want to blur, I'm blurring, I'm not blending. I'm not blending it out because I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose all this beautiful work I just did, especially because I do still need the audience to see me from a significant amount away. So I'm just softening it so it doesn't look like a hard line. It's like this guy. I'm just going to pull down a little bit. Just a little bit here. Just soften it. You can still see that there's a lot of pigment there. I haven't completely blended it in. Same here. I'm going to, but because, now here's a place, see this is where things get tricky and it's confusing and I know that it is, but just bear with me. I promise it makes sense in the end. It looks right. So here's one of those places where the shadow does what you think it's going to do. The highlight goes on top, the shadow goes on bottom. So when I'm pulling the color out of this highlight, I'm going to come up because I want to make sure that I don't lose that space for the shadow to go. So this is going to curve up because when you think about the light hitting your face here, this is the part that's bright. This is the part that's darker. So this shadow goes the way you normally think it would. This one right here, I'm just softening that up and pulling out. This one's backwards. This one is upside down and backwards, but it's the way it's got to be. Trust me. All right, I'm going to soften this up a little bit. Give myself a nice chin. Again, this one, because when the light hits here, this is the part that's brightest. So I'm going to pull that highlight up instead of down. Up, 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 up. Okay, now I've got my highlight. I'm going to go back now with my contour, which is where we're going to start putting some shadows on the face. Alright. We tend to, in our 30s, starting really, late 20s, early 30s, start looking a little more tired. So under here is where we kind of start getting a little bit run down. A little bit of shadow there. I'm just going to use my finger to kind of soften that up a little bit. So just, yeah, little run down, little tired. A little bit more long days going into this. Okay. Now, let me switch over and take a different brush. I want to make sure that I, get my nose where I want it. I'm going right next to where I just had put that line and made my nose ever so slightly bigger on the end. I'm going to go underneath that line. And again, instead of giving myself a nice striking, slashing cheekbone, I kind of curved it a little bit because that's what happens. This part, our face starts slipping. There are fat pads up underneath your skin, and as we get older, those fat pads start slipping a little bit. So that's why older people tend to have more jowly jaw lines, the more rounded cheeks. It's because gravity's working against us. All right, and again, down here, I'm going to just a little bit round, a little bit rounded. Okay. For these big pieces on the face, like the cheek, the jaw, I'm going to go with a nice fluffy brush, and I'm going to soften that up, and then pull down. Soften and pull down. Because again, this is where I'm wanting the shadow to be underneath the highlight. This is the one that makes sense. Alright. I'm going to go back in there with a little bit of this brush just to kind of... I don't want there to be a hard line there. I do still want it to be nice and soft. So I'm going to actually go just a skosh of the highlight color. And it's, you play. That's what you do with makeup. You play until you get it right. There's no pressure to do it the perfect way every single time. I'm going to go back and soften this up a little bit. Again, I'm running my brush back and forth across the line between the light and the dark to soften it, and then I'm going to pull down and out. And if I need to go back with the highlight because I got a little too crazy with the shadow, it's no big deal. It's allowed. Alright. Now here on this one, remember we flipped it. So instead of the highlight being on top and the shadow on bottom, I'm going to go with my shadow on top of my highlight here because again, we're carving up this shade. All right, so I'm going to pull up. It looks crazy. It looks absolutely crazy up close. Like doing this up close is insane, but it's right. It's right. And see, as I smile, it looks right because if you notice, there's a highlight here. This is where the shadow is on this side. So that's what we're doing. We're just reintroducing the light and shadow on the face in a different way. I'm gonna give myself a little bit right there to really emphasize the fact that this chin is starting to get a little round. But again, not crazy. Nothing crazy just yet. I'm going to take a little bit of that, the darker color, and I'm going to go up on my eye just to kind of give that. A lot of times when you're working with theater makeup, you have to have the light and the dark next to each other together to be able to see either of them. See, now once I put, you can't really see how bright that eyebrow is until I go right next to it with some shadow. Now all of a sudden, whoa, that's a bright brow bone. So soften it up a little bit. Okay. All right, so I look a little more tired on this side. This is me, normal tired Shanna. And then this is a little more, you know, this is 45. This is Shanna at 45. I'm going to go now with some wrinkles. Let's go some wrinkles. All right, so I'm starting to get them right here because I smile a lot. I'm a smiley, happy girl most of the time. So little crow's feet, and if I'm, see right there's one. Here's where you want to like move your face around and really like get in there and see where you're gonna have your wrinkles coming up. Like move your eyebrows together, move your face around, move your eyes, your cheeks around to see where those are gonna be. Because that's where it's gonna look the most believable, and that's where you're gonna be able to really help sell your character, and we won't lose what your face is doing, is if you're working off of what's already there muscle-wise under your skin. So now I'm gonna take a little bit of these. These are my angry eyebrows. I usually name them after whatever actor is giving me grief in the show that I'm working on. So I'm going to soften that up a little bit. And soften these guys up a little bit. Now, with wrinkles, we do the same thing that we did with the nasolabial folds. We go over with the shadow, and the highlight goes underneath. So I'm going to go underneath my shadow. And suddenly those wrinkles read more because we added the light right next to the dark. So there we go. Soften and soften and soften. Starting to get some laugh lines down here, so I'm going to give myself a little bit right here. Some here. Just a little bit of wrinkling. It's nothing much. I earned it. I'm fine with it. But now I'm going to go back with my highlight on bottom because that's where it makes sense for it to be. Okay. And now I can just blur those together. Don't want to lose them too much. And again, this is also dependent on how far away your audience is. You might need to do a little bit more depending on how close they are, or a little bit less. Alright, but this I'm going to go ahead and call like my middle-aged look. Just a little tired. But it's okay. Alright, this side is going to be the one that is older. So let's go back to that eyebrow that we did first. And now the collagen's really going slack. I work on mothers of the bride, grandmothers of the bride a lot, and a lot of times I have to straight up pick up their eyebrow to do their makeup. So this part of the body is one place that really does get a lot saggy. as we do get older. It's just what it is. So now instead of, I'm going to do the highlight and the contour together on this side just so that way you can see how different it is. So now I'm going to go, and instead I brought it up underneath here. I'm barely going to do any at all right here, and I'm just going to keep it on the lid because then it really brings that down. I'm going to take my blurring brush, and that really does pull down. Okay, let's talk about this part of the face, the under eye area. As we get older, a lot of times you'll get this bone starts coming forward more. Your orbital socket bone comes forward, and then this part up in here either recedes and gets really like sunken, or it gets puffy. Sometimes it just gets a little puffy. So what I'm going to do is this is one of those places where we put the highlight on the bottom because the bone is what's really coming forward. So I'm going to pull that up there. And then I'm going to pull down. I'm going to go ahead and go in with my darker color, and I'm going to go right next to it. I'm really emphasizing this here. Grandma is tired. Okay, so I got that. Now I can go back and soften that up a little bit. And again, sometimes we get that little sac that's underneath your eye fills up with fluid or whatever it is that makes that look like jelly up underneath Grandma's eye. It gets a little bit filled up and three-dimensional. So I'm going to go back and just give myself a little bit of highlight in the middle there, just to make it look like this part is still coming further forward. Because again, that's the whole thing with makeup. You're wanting what you want to be further away, you darken. What you want to come forward, you lighten. That's just how it goes. Alright, I'm going to give myself a bigger brow bone. This all up through here is bigger because it's skull and it's at the top, so everything is being pulled down away from it. So that is about the only place as we get older that the skin stays fairly tight up against the skull. Alright, here. So you've got bones up underneath here, your orbital socket, and then you've got this little hollow where your temple is. That starts coming forward too. So I'm going to get some highlight. I'm going to just kind of trace that bone, that little opening in the bone there in the skull. And go back over it just to soften it and pull away from it. And then inside is where the shadow is, because that's where the skin is sinking into the skull. Oh yeah, it's crazy. The human body is so crazy as we get older what it does. So I'm just going to fill that in right there. I'm going to soften it and kind of pull it back up into my hairline. So we can see, from this side, I've still got pretty even from my bone to my hairline, but on this side, it's starting to get a little sunken. Starting to get a little bit sunken. I'm going to do a little bit of contour up around, I'm going to throw brushes first. I'm going to do a little bit of contour up around my forehead. I'm going to really shave that out. As we get older, we tend to kind of square off a little bit through here. We don't have as much fat padding out our skull, so this gets a little more angular. I'm just softening it. I'm just blurring it a little bit just to give myself a little bit of something there. Alright, let's talk about these let's do the nose first. Let's do the nose first. The nose, as we get older, it gets bigger. Again, that's one of the things that as we, even as we continue to age, that never stops growing is our nose and our ears. Fun trivia for the day. So I'm coming out a little bit and I'm rounding off a little bit here. And then I'm going to go right next to it with my contour. Round and off. As we get older, we tend to get more rounded because the fat pads have started moving and everything's kind of falling in on itself. So we kind of just start getting round. Now that is if we are allowing ourselves to age as biology ages us. Now if we're, you know, investing in surgical procedures to supplement the way the aging process, that's completely different. That's a whole different look. it's great. That's a crazy look to do with makeup too. All right, so I'm gonna do my my shadow first on this one. So we're going to the cheeks, and Grandma's getting real old. So Grandma, instead of having this nice high cheekbone, Grandma is sagging, and I'm almost coming like up here to where it's gonna catch into my nasolabial shadow that we're going to do here in a minute. But I'm just coming down. And now I'm going to soften that up a little bit. So another reason why Grandma talks down here is because she can't get her cheeks up out of the way to talk like she used to talk anymore. These cheeks are heavy because gravity is working against them. Gonna go back with the highlight on top. This is a regular one. This is a normal highlight shadow combo. So I can take my brush, just blur, and then pull that highlight up. And then you can go back with, you know, blush if Grandma still wears her blush. I know some grandmas still like to wear the rouge. They like to have a little rouge on. So that's pulling it down. The cheeks are little. Let's go ahead and do the nasolabial fold. And remember, this is a weird one. This is one that flips upside down. So we do our highlight on the bottom here, which makes sense now that we've laid this cheekbone down, this cheek down. You see how it kind of curves back up. The shadow, it would be weird if all of a sudden it stopped and there was a highlight here. It comes back up into a shadow because that's where the shadow is on that bad boy. It makes the sense. I'm pulling that highlight out. I think I pulled a little too much out. That's okay. I can always go back. It's no big deal. It's makeup. It ain't that big of a deal. You just work with it. And I'm able to do this quickly because I've been doing this for, you know, 20 years. Nobody's expecting you to do it perfectly the first time. Practice, practice, practice. All right. Let's get that shadow on the top. I'm pulling it down from here. And then we're going to pull up with it. There we go. There we go. Now I'm nice and jowly. You rotten kids. I don't want to lose this part of my cheek because we did work so hard to like carve that back out, and I'm kind of losing it. So I'm going to go back with just a little bit more here. Like I said, it ain't no thing. It's a finesse game, and you do what looks right when you need it to. Soften that up just a little bit. Yeah, I've got my cheek back. All right, let's talk about this jawline down here. Granny's jaw is resting on her chest by the time she gets done. A lot of times we do, as we get older, this starts just all kind of going down into itself like a turtle because the collagen, the elasticity, a lifetime of just not doing neck push-ups. There's not really much of a workout that you can do to keep this nice and tight. So what we're going to do is we're going to really, really swing for the fences with this. My brush took a walk. There it is. Excuse me. So instead of, you know, normally when we're doing normal stage makeup, you just follow the natural line of your jaw. Well, middle age, we swung it just a little bit low, but now we really going to get it. Oh, yes. We're going to even draw down onto the neck. our faces get wider as we get older. Gravity and witchcraft and a lot of times it even will come up right here because there's a tendon right here that attaches, that helps move your mouth muscle from your jaw. So you've got a little bit of tightness right here, but then it slacks off over your chin again. So you go right back down. So we get like a little bitty upside down V right here. Excuse me. So I'm gonna take that and soften it. I am starting to look like my Mimi on this side. It's a little unsettling. Not gonna lie. All right, so now, but because we've made this nice shadow, let's give it a nice highlight on top. And the same on the chin. We're gonna follow this. And then soften, pull up. And soften, pull over. I'm gonna take that shadow over again. It's a little more defined this time, and it goes a little further over because we really are getting into, this is a part of the chin that has been moved, and I've as we eat, as we move our mouth, as we talk, this right here, a wrinkle starts developing because this is a part of our face that gets moved a lot. All right. This part, our lips tend to get a little thinner, so I'm gonna pull my lips in just a little bit using a highlight. As opposed to normal lip fullness. Smaller, been doing this a lot. All right, let's do some wrinkles. We got the big pieces on the face done. Let's do some wrinkles. All right, I'm gonna go with the dark tone first. And now Granny really got, she's been a lifetime laughing. Granny's doing good. Granny's doing real good. This one, but those darn grandkids, sometimes those darn grandkids, they just, so we're getting those in there. Here, got some wrinkle in here. Got some wrinkles here. Lips tend to get a little wrinkledy, so I'm going to go up and down there. I'm going to do some on the forehead. A wiggle, you can see I do have some lines up there, and oh, they're only going to get worse. Yeah, move your face around and make sure that those wrinkles are kind of follow your natural features. That way, when you're moving your eyebrows, your wrinkles move too, instead of just standing there because you just drew them on willy-nilly. That's right, I said willy-nilly. Okay, I'm going with my highlight now. And remember, we go underneath with the highlight. On the ones that are straight up and down, whichever. Just take your best guess. Do whatever looks right. There's no real rhyme and reason with the up and down ones. Alright, now I'm going to soften those up. And when you're doing your wrinkles on the forehead, they look a little weird because normally I would go all the way across, but I'm doing half and half for demonstration purposes. But you want to like trail off to where there's not like a hard stop on your wrinkles, because there's usually not a hard stop on wrinkles in real life. They kind of just trail off into the sunset, into the skin. So little quick flicks that let decrease your pressure as you're coming away. Alright, so there's my granny. If I want to, I could go and do some neck work and like I've got these folds right here just naturally. That's where I'm gonna have like some real ooh, Jabba the Hutt looking stuff later. And if I take that and just blend it out, it looks like my skin's starting, Granny's getting, Granny's sinking into herself. That's what happens. We start like sinking into our own skull and our own bodies, our own rib cages. All right, so middle-aged, just a little bit tired. That's all. Little crow's feet, little laugh lines, jaw and cheekbone are starting to dip a little bit. This is starting to slide down a little bit, and then we get to here where it's really slid down. Our lips have gotten smaller. We've got more pronounced wrinkles, and those could use a little more blending, but for educational and quick purposes, we've got a really sloped down cheek and jawbone area here. We've really got a pronounced wrinkle here. This whole area is brought forward at the top of the cheek and then sunken in inside the orbital socket. Our nose is a little bit wider, that sort of thing. Now that we are done with all of our cream work is when we would use powder to set, because if you don't wait until the end to do the powder, you're not going to get the creams to wiggle and blend the way that you want them to, or blur, because we don't really blend this out, because ideally none of these lines would still be here if we were doing regular stage makeup, but because we're doing a stylized reimagining of the light and shadow on a face, this is what you want to leave it, but you don't want to blur it out too much, but you do want to be able to have the creams move together and do what you want them to do. Hope you guys have fun. Let me know if there's any questions. I'll do my best to help you if I can. You'll have a great day. Because I said so.